Oil, arms and silence. The genocide in Sudan that the world pretends not to see. The world is quite comfortable gazing the other way. In the scorched plains of Darfur, in the torching of civilians near Al Janina, and in the camps where entire families vanish under the boots of paramilitaries, a genocide is underway. Yet somehow the global media, diplomatic corps and corporate boardrooms are content to treat it as just another African conflict, rather than the shameful, deliberate mass killing that it is. Let us call it by its name. The militia known as the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, together with allied forces, are committing targeted, ethnic-based mass slaughter. In January 2024, the United States Secretary of State publicly declared that the RSF had committed genocide in the region of Darfur, where men and boys of certain groups were systematically murdered, and women and girls sexually assaulted on an ethnic basis. Meanwhile, the government of Sudan at the International Court of Justice has filed a formal case against the United Arab Emirates, accusing it of breaching the Genocide Convention by arming and supporting the RSF. And yet, the news headlines are thin, the outrage thin-washed. Why? Because oil money is strong. Because geopolitical alliances are stronger still. Because Africa's blood flows quietly through pipelines and the pockets of investors. And the world's media prefers the familiar flash of other wars. Oil, gold, and the business of mass murder. This is not a conflict of spontaneous chaos. It is a conflict with profit motives, resource grabs, and the collusion of external powers. Sudan is rich in natural resources: gold, oil, gum arabic, and livestock. These should have been the means to dignity. Instead, they are the financing of death. In particular, the UAE has invested heavily in Sudan's gold mining operations. A report shows that Emirate-owned operations are smuggling gold, funding militant logistics, weapons procurement, and the paramilitary machinery of the RSF. Sudan's economy is small, roughly $30 billion, yet its war economy relies on international trade, illicit exports, and the brazen backing of states recklessly treating human beings as collateral. By contrast, the UAE's GDP is hundreds of billions, and its oil and finance leverage in the region gives it immunity from serious consequences. When the RSF is armed, funded, enabled, and allowed to continue its campaigns of mass murder against non-Arab groups in Darfur with impunity, and the international community stands by, that is not negligence. It is complicity by silence. Media apathy and the double standard. When horrific atrocities unfold in Africa, the coverage is minimal. When they happen elsewhere, especially in places where the world has a vested interest, the coverage surges. The conflict in Sudan meets every definition of genocide: targeted killings of men and boys, systematic rape, preventing the delivery of aid, mass displacement. Yet the world's newsrooms shrug. There is no global task force of outrage. No steady nightly cameras. No blockbuster hero documentary on prime time. Why? Because the network of power, profit, and prestige that backs the conflict in Sudan is too big, too entangled. The oil companies that once helped fund Sudan's government war machine in Darfur are still operating. Investors still turn a blind eye. The press once ran exposés, then drifted off. The cameras moved elsewhere. Compare that to conflicts closer to the West. Media saturation, 24/7 commentary, endless op-ed battles. The negligence of Sudan is part of a pattern. African suffering tends to get the short end of global outrage. It is not only a disaster of bodies, but a catastrophe of attention. Geopolitics trumps justice. Let us not pretend this is a war only between Sudanese factions. The RSF is not a clumsy rebel group. They are part of a regional proxy war. Foreign states supply them with arms, logistics, and funding. The UAE, with its network of alliances, is implicated. At the same time, the world looks the other way because to speak openly would mean exposing the oil money circuits, the arms dealers, the complicity of companies and states. That kind of reckoning would risk the severing of profitable ties, conflict with powerful allies, and making uncomfortable disclosures. Meanwhile, thousands die. Millions flee. Famine is declared. And global media yawns. The doctrine of responsibility to protect becomes a punchline when the victim is in Africa and the perpetrator is backed by a Gulf state with lots of friends. The moral bankruptcy of silence. There is a moral threshold here. When men and boys are butchered for their ethnicity. When 8 trucks are shelled, hospitals are turned into charnel houses. When displacement reaches double-digit millions and famine stalks children who have done nothing wrong, then the world must respond. Not with tentative words. Not with occasional sanctions. With sustained pressure. With truth. With justice. Yet the world does not. The oil flows. The gold flows. The arms flow. Media flows elsewhere. Silence becomes the default. It is shameful. It is a stain on international law. On journalistic integrity. On the conscience of every human who believes that the life of an African child matters the same as a child elsewhere. What must change, and who must be called out? First, the media must stop treating Sudan as a distant conflict. The genocide classification must be front page, not buried. Reporters must go in. Investigate the networks. Expose the financiers. The shareholders. The oil companies. The banks. Anywhere there is money that sustains death. Second, governments must stop hiding behind sovereignty and internal conflict excuses. When a state or non-state actor commits genocide, no matter where, the Genocide Convention applies. The fact that the UAE is being accused of complicity by another state before the ICJ should be a wake-up call. Third, corporate entities and investors must face accountability. Oil companies that funded conflict in Sudan half a century ago still set the standard. Profits over people. Financial institutions that invest in regimes or companies complicit in mass murder must be exposed. Divestment is not enough. They must be made accountable. Fourth, civil society must push for sustained international pressure. Arms embargoes, independent investigations and sanctions not just on low-level actors but on the supporters and funders behind them. Final word. If the genocides we choose to ignore are those where nobody photo calls the bomb shed, where there is no viral video, no celebrity hashtags, then we must ask ourselves, what kind of world are we? The world's silence on Sudan is not just the absence of words. It is an active endorsement of murder. It is indifference dressed as other people's problem. Oil money and geopolitical leverage make inconvenient truths disappear behind diplomatic courtesies and corporate blandishments. To the editors, the reporters, the NGOs, the states, wake up. Report. Do not rest until the people of Sudan stop dying, and until those who sponsor their death are named, exposed and held to account. History will remember not just the murderers in Sudan, but the world that let them do it.